awareness of, to your point, your brand, which brings me to my last question and kind of the last segment, if you will, of our discussion here today, branding. So a lot of times people are like, oh, well, you know what? I need to brand more. I need to get this out there. The podcast is called How to Brand and Grow Your Coaching Practice.
Yes.
Talk to us about what an online brand, in your opinion, what are we talking about exactly? Because I hear people kind of kick it around. I kick it around. An online brand, you see Ivanka Trump is all she can talk about is her brand. We know it can't be that. So what is it that an online brand actually is?
And this is such a fun conversation. I love this part because most of the time, and this is including me, I thought this way too, is that we think our brand is the beautiful color palette, is the logo, right?
Right.
Is the graphics.
Right.
No, that's not your brand. That's just the beautiful, aesthetically pleasing things. Mm-hmm. Your brand is actually how people think of you.
Mm-hmm.
So when they think of doing business with you, what's the first thing that comes to their mind? Is it something of excitement, or are they like, I don't want to talk to that person? That's your brand. It really comes down to, how do people see you? How do you present yourself? How do you do business? And how do you operate? So I have a really good friend down in Iowa. He's very successful in the network marketing side of things. And one of his things is he is one of those people that has been able to utilize the political climate and use that as part of his brand. And he does it in a very, very intelligent way. Not everybody does. Sometimes it can get really messy, but he does it in a way where it draws conversation. It's not blame, shame, and criticism. So that's part of his brand, right? And he's going to attract those type of people. And so if you have, and that's really what it is. It's how do you operate? How do you present yourself? That is the key part of your brand. So really getting clear on, who are you now? And is that who you want to portray? Right. Is that who you want to be? And if it's not, what are some steps you can do to start operating in a way that would be in line with the brand you want to create? And then the logo and the color palette will all come.
I read a book, Tom Antion, a while back. It was called How to Sell a Ton in the Back of the Room. And it was talking about speaking and stuff like that. He made several good points, but one that there's actually two that I always remember. This is one of them. He said, there's different types of speakers and you have to figure out which one you want to be. I'm like, okay. He says, you have the people who are the speakers, like the gurus, the from high, and they're speaking.
Like the voice of God.
Right. There's like Old Testament God, not New Testament, but Old Testament. And it's like, oh, okay. And it's coming down. And he says, that's fine. He says, then, and you can call them the gurus, the experts, whatever the case may be. He says, then you have the people who are kind of like, talkative and engaging, and I don't even really know how I got here kind of thing. And they're just like, okay, whatever. And that's also fine. He says, but what you got to do, this is a continuum. What you got to do is you got to figure out where you want to be. And the term that he used that I liked is this, because he had like 3 or 4 terms. I'm just not remembering them all. It's the idea of what he called an accessible expert. And I was like, isn't that interesting? So he says, yes, what that is, it's a hybrid, it turns out, where you're talking to people and, you're having a good time, but, you do know what you're talking about. Otherwise, why would you be there? You're talking to people, they're having a good time, everybody's happy. But then afterwards, you're talking them like after the presentation. You ever see some speakers, they pop off the stage when they're done and it's like they're double parked at the airport?
Yes, they run.
You know what I'm talking about. This
Exactly
person seems great, seems nice, seems really fun. You're willing to stand in line. You actually go up to the front of the room. There are people in front of you. You are queuing with the UE, in line, ready to go, okay? And it's like he's double parked. And Tom's like, not recommended. So I've come with this idea of, you're talking about your brand. My opinion, I'll certainly hear what you have to say. I'd love to hear it. Accessible expert. It's someone who is I think of a brand as a result of your marketing efforts. People use branding as a verb. I disagree. I think it's a noun and I think it's a destination. And I think that you get to your brand when you've marketed yourself in a way that's in line with your message, preferably. And the way I like to think of a brand is something like that is warm and inviting.
Yes. Yes. I wholeheartedly agree. Because the thing is people, again, it comes back to the connection, right?
Good point again.
Comes back to the connection. If you can make yourself available, one of my favorite people to listen to and watch is actually Mel Robbins, because she does this so well. You always see conversations that she's having with people after the event.
Right.
She takes time for her fans
Right.
to ask questions and get to know
Right.
her and give advice.
Right.
And so that's, yes, that is exactly the way that I find the best way to do it. Is definitely, you do want to know what you're talking about and have that confidence that you do, but at the same time, we're all humans. And so if you can get on the same plane as people and just be a human with them, give them time, give them the attention, you're going to create that really strong affinity, and people are going to love to be with you and hear what you have to say.
So speaking of which, I was at, this was a while back, one of my very first, not very first, but one of my earlier presentations. It was a group of like 200 people, which at the time was a large, still is a large. If you give me 200 people, I'll still take it, just so anybody wants to know, I'll take that. But at the time, that was like unfathomable number of people, okay? And I remember I was on stage and I was fired up. I'm playing my game, people are laughing. When people laugh, I start telling more jokes. I get, more shots go up. And then we were done, everybody's clapping. So I have a tendency, especially if I'm fired up and if it's on stage, I kind of do this like, I actually jumped off the stage. I jumped off the stage and it's higher than you think, by the way. You think it's maybe
quite the drop.
No, it's a big drop. I jumped off the stage in this kind of like Batman kind of thing, right? Because it was far. I had to get myself organized. And then I'm going out, and this is the idea of connecting with your audience. It's a little bit funny story, but it's the truth, which is I'm walking back to the thing and everyone's clapping. Somebody put their hand out. A guy, I remember this, he puts his hand out like for a high five. I'm fired up. I go like that. Like, I mean, I really I go like you see in football, like boom. And then another guy, at this time, now I'm jogging back like Larry Bird in the old Boston Garden. Guy puts his hand up. I'm high-fiving. People start putting his hand up. The thing ends, 10 seconds. I'm going like this down the side, okay? It's like the thing. And I tell people, I said, listen, when you're doing when in my own mind, that's what you're looking for. That's a connection with your audience or whomever. And then from there, having it where they feel like you know what you're talking about. And then you go and you're talking to people. And I think that a lot of coaches and authors, actually specifically authors, we have a tendency to try to hide behind the book.
Yes.
No, they want to know what you did. When did you think of this? How did it come across? When did you I tell people my first book, Networking Like a Pro, I didn't really want to write it. I didn't get blackmailed into it because that's a federal offense. but I definitely was in that conversation. You're like, listen, the guy said, if you don't finish your book, you're not going to speak until you finish your book. If you want to come speak, then you need to finish the book. Okay, I finished the book. It was only because I wanted to go to the conference. It wasn't necessarily because I thought writing a book was a good idea. So the point is, people like to hear that story, and people like to, and your point about the behind the scenes and stuff like that, absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. Well, this was a really, really good conversation. I'm so glad we were able to carve out some time to do this. Tell folks, I know you're on LinkedIn, maybe where they can find you, and just to give them a feel for where you are.
Absolutely. So I'm actually on a few different social sites. My top 3 are LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram.
Okay.
And that is about it, because I don't like the other ones.
Okay.
If you don't like them, don't do them.
That's right.
So you can actually find me on LinkedIn. Just search Kristin Louise Heneghan, and my last name is spelled Heneghan.
Okay.
You can find me on Instagram at I am Kristin Louise.
Okay.
And then on Facebook, same thing, Kristin Louise Heneghan, and I will be there.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, this was a pleasure. I'm so glad we got a chance, like I said, to talk. It was really good to kind of, some of the stuff people maybe know, some of it they had a different take on. I think whenever I try to have a social conversation, I try to come from an angle where it's like, listen, it's kind of like cleaning out the basement, not the basement, but like the living room. It's not the basement, but the living room, where it's like, let's kind of clean some of this out. Some of it we need, some of it we don't maybe, some of it we thought we did, but we really don't. Really, really, really good stuff. I love the stuff about the hub. I love the stuff about the hub, and the affinity and the stickiness and all of that good stuff. Kristin, it was awesome. So my name is Brian Hilliard. That is Kristin Louise Heneghan, and we really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on, Kristin. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Brian. It was an absolute honor.